So this is just one in a series of videos in which I wanted to discuss coronavirus, because what I'm getting is I have friends and family and just patients all the time that are asking me questions about coronavirus, and it just never ceases to amaze me how somehow this virus has developed supernatural powers. But before I do have some concerns that some of the things I might say may be somehow considered disinformation, or that it may run afoul of YouTube's ideas that anything that contradicts the World Health Organization is disinformation. That whole idea, right, is actually unscientific at its basis, right? So what they're saying is if whatever a physician, and I am a physician, says that it somehow contradicts what the World Health Organization says or whatever the authorities say, that somehow we're spreading disinformation and it's unscientific. In reality, the people doing the censoring are actually unscientific. There was a guy called Karl Popper, who was probably one of the most famous scientific philosophers of the 20th century. And Karl Popper made an argument that the whole point of science was to disprove things, that your hypothesis should be something that could be proven false, right? And so if you think about this, what the World Health Organization is saying is supposed to be taken as gospel, right? That no one can challenge it because it's disinformation. That's really probably the most unscientific thing you can do, ignoring the whole idea of civil liberties, free speech, and such like that. Now, some people will critique this and say, well, it's a private company, they can put and do whatever they want. Well, that's true and it's not true, because Facebook, YouTube, like things like that, based on the Communications Act, were considered platforms as compared to a publisher. So if a newspaper publishes something that's false, they can be sued for it. But Section 230 of the Communications Act gave broad protection to things like YouTube and Facebook, right? And the whole point of that was to broaden political discourse from all sides of the spectrum. So if you're going to make the argument that YouTube is a private company and they can do whatever they want, then you should really be removing their protection so they can be sued for slander, defamation, any sort of illegal things that may occur, right? The same way you'd be able to sue a newspaper for that. So having said that, right, that's my whole point on that. You should know something about Karl Popper because he's famous, and his big point is that you're not truly a scientist if all you're doing is trying to confirm what is already accepted. Your point is to have a hypothesis that's falsifiable, and you prove that false. Now, historically, that actually goes way back, right? So if you were to look at this, Nassim Taleb of the Black Swan is probably the most famous person that said this. And his example was that for years people said there was no such thing. All swans were white. And eventually that was based on observation. And then it was shown that there was actually a black swan in Australia, right? So that's the whole point of that. You prove things false rather than confirming things. That idea actually goes back to Hume, who also talked about if you were, it's called the problem of confirmation and induction, right? So if you were a turkey and you were being raised, your whole thoughts of human beings, they're pretty nice people, right? They feed you all the time, they come and talk to you, give you shelter, and that they're absolutely people to a turkey, you as a turkey, that there is absolutely no danger for them whatsoever, and that they were just kind, nice people. Well, you would be disabused of that notion on the day before Thanksgiving when your head got lopped off and you were cooked. It even goes back further than Hume, in a special point to big tech that believes in censorship, is Socrates said in the Dialogue of the Gorgias that the difference between a rhetorician and a philosopher, that a rhetorician simply wants to win the argument and has no regard for the truth, whereas a philosopher loves and enjoys being proven wrong because it moves him that much closer to the truth. So my only hope is that these videos are not taken down, and that you will understand that the idea of actually taking down a video that's actually challenging the status quo is probably the most unscientific thing that you can do. So having said that, let's start, and we'll hope you enjoy these.